Hello, everyone, and welcome to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts, where we talk everything Georgia Bulldog football recruiting related. I am Blaine Gilmer here with Trent Smallwood and Jed May as we once again come to you talking about the dogs on the trail. And guys, we got to watch a little bit of high school football this last weekend. So, first off, how are both of you guys doing? Because we're right to the wire getting on here, getting started tonight. So how are y'all doing? And then also let's talk a little bit about some of the high school action we saw this weekend.
Yeah, doing great. We finally got to see some of these guys that, we've been covering all summer and going back to last year, I guess, in action. A lot of these guys starting their senior seasons. And yeah, it's good to get back going and see some live action for once.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Trent,
I mean,
how's everything going, man?
I had the opportunity to go watch a college team, Buford, and in all honesty, they really they kind of look like a Buford team, like you're accustomed to. They're big up front, very good at linebacker, and have about 37 D1 prospects on their team. So
yeah, it's ridiculous. Obviously, Buford, a powerhouse program year in and year out. They're going to have those type of guys. It doesn't hurt when you got a running back like Justice Haynes move in to do his thing. And it wasn't just Buford guys. I mean, there's a lot of impressive programs, impressive performances out there, not only class of 2023, but all the way down to class of 2026 with Juju Lewis having his first ever high school start. It seems like we've been waiting for him to start since in high school since he was in sixth grade. I mean, the young man's had 10,000 followers on Instagram forever, it seems like. And man, he impressed. His first varsity start for Carrollton, goes out there, goes 18 to 27. I think 256 yard, 287 yards, something along those lines, 5 touchdown passes. Very impressive. I'm going to be going to watch him take on another talented quarterback, Cason Wiseman, this upcoming Friday night. Of course, Cason Wiseman teammates with Jamarin Wilcox, who Georgia's keeping in touch with at running back. Also Madden Sanker, who Georgia recruited at one point on that team. So Carrollton versus South Paulton is going to be a big matchup. But guys, there was also some big performances by guys like Sammy Brown and Chris Peel. A lot of guys that Georgia's after in multiple classes really showed out Friday night, Jed.
Yeah, and you look at Trent mentioned the Buford game. KJ Bolden had a good game. CJ Allen had I want to say he had 200-something yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns as a running back, not to mention what he did as a linebacker. So that's the thing. You get these guys in high school that just you can truly tell these guys, you can tell why they're being recruited by Georgia because they can just dominate so easily on both sides of the ball. Sammy Brown's another one. He plays kind of like a wing back for Jefferson, who runs the triple option, and he's so much better than everybody else. He gets the ball coming around the corner with that mullet, and he's just unstoppable. So
it's like a superpower.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a bunch, and even like you said, Blaine, 2026, another guy I was interested to watch this weekend was Tyler Atkinson at Grayson at 2026. Projects as an edge at the next level. Also played his first varsity game, is a physical specimen already, and Grayson plays him as like a 4-3 outside linebacker. So he's flying around the field. He blew up a guy on a kickoff return at one point, and you're like, I'm sure, these people watching Juju Lewis had the same reaction. Like, this guy's 14, 15 years old, whatever it is. I mean, there's already a couple of 2026 guys that are really starting to stand out, and Atkinson and Lewis are just 2 of them.
Absolutely. Trent, I mean, also too, guys like Chris Peel, who Georgia's, like I said, is recruiting as a defensive back, but the man had 150 yards receiving from Jaden Davis, another guy they're recruiting in 3 touchdowns. Chris Peel, I think, is a little bit better athlete than some people are giving him credit for.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's one thing that you look back, Kirby Smart is going to recruit basically athletes at the defensive back position. Kids that can make plays on balls, kids that were wide receivers in high school, and Peel's no different than that. He's a playmaker. He can play either. He could probably play either offense or defense at the next level. Georgia's recruiting him at defensive back, but he's a playmaker. He's an athlete, and I think he would fit well in Kirby's defense.
I got Brett Weimer on here with us. We got a bunch of people tuning in. If you're tuning in, go ahead and drop where you're watching from. We always like to call those out, see what city, what state, what country. We've had people from across the pond watching the show. So tell us where you're watching from. Throw your comments in. We'll be answering those, interacting with you on the YouTube chat there. So appreciate everybody tuning in. This is UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. We've been talking a little bit about some of the high school action has been getting started, but guys, really the main story and the lead story is Anthony Evans makes his decision this week. It seems like it's been a Georgia and Oklahoma battle for a while over Anthony Evans III, a very fast wide receiver out of Texas. And, you know, he was an Arkansas commit at one point. Georgia got on him early in the spring. He comes out for a visit and decides to decommit from Arkansas. And really it's been kind of a Oklahoma-Georgia race ever since. Trent, Georgia's in the spot right now where they've missed on a lot of skill kids, just plain and simple, have missed on a lot of skill kids. Anthony Evans, while he's a 4-star receiver, not not a 5-star guy or things of that nature in the rankings, but he can fly. He's a playmaker and somebody that Georgia definitely wants in the program. How high are the stakes right here for Georgia? You know, going after a guy like Anthony Evans, considering what's happened in the class before now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is I wouldn't say it's a must get, but I think, when you start missing on these guys, start missing them, keep missing them, keep missing them, then it's eventually going to be a struggle. But Evans is a kid that they've prioritized for several months now, and he's been at the top of their priority list, and I think he is a guy that they of course see the speed, but he's not only speed. He's a playmaker. He's dynamic after the catch, and I think he fits that Todd Monken offense very well. And I like where Georgia sits.
Yeah, absolutely, Jed. It seems like, and we're going to get into wide receiver here in a little bit, but it really seems like that, Georgia has been trying to have to find guys, and then we'll get into negative recruiting and things, but find guys that are going to buy into the system and the philosophy that Georgia has, because quite honestly, I mean, it is easy to negative recruit in some ways against Georgia because you're not going to get the touches and things like that, the volume, but maybe the explosivity's there, the pro development, success George Pickens is having in the pros right now, things of that. Isaiah McKenzie has had a tremendous career and is actually going to be a big part of the Buffalo Bills offense this year, one of the better teams in the NFL. And, it just seems like that's the angle Georgia is having to take right now when they're pitching these wide receivers. Yeah,
there's definitely they've got to look for certain guys because, like you said, you're not going to go. I mean, it's the easiest, lowest hanging negative recruiting fruit there is, right? Georgia's had one 1,000-yard receiver in school history. How many 1,000-yard receivers have Ohio State, Alabama, Oklahoma, those schools like that had in the past 5 years, say, just since these kids have been in high school? So you need those kids who are committed to a team concept. Receivers are asked to block a lot at Georgia. They got to have kids bought into that. And listen, you can't begrudge your kid for saying, "Hey, I want to go to a place and put up big numbers and get drafted." That's some kids make that choice, and some kids decide to come to Georgia. But at the end of the day, there are certain guys. I mean, look at Yazid Haynes, a lower ranked guy that's bought in. Raymond Cottrell is a 250 guy, but not as a 5-star by any means, and that's another guy that's bought in. So it's been challenging, but at the end of the day, we've talked about all this hand-wringing over recruiting and everything. If Georgia lands Anthony Evans and Tyler Williams to close this class, two guys that they're in very good shape with, this ends up as a pretty good receiver class when you pair those two with Haynes and Cottrell.
For sure. Speed is the name of the game, and it is what Georgia is trying to load that receiving room with, as Trent's point. Yazid Haynes is a guy that ran a 4.3 on a laser at a Penn State camp earlier this year, and Georgia really got on him after that. Raymond Cottrell's a fast receiver in his own right. Anthony Evans III, if Georgia's able to add him in there, this is a guy who ran a 10.27 10.27 in the 100-meter this spring. I mean, that is picking them up and putting them down. So obviously Georgia would love to have him. I think that Bryan McClendon and Todd Monken being two of the guys that really kind of rekindled that recruitment there. It kind of hit a lull period. Nobody was really talking to Anthony Evans much after he committed to Arkansas in November of 2021. And Georgia kind of sparked everything up again when that track time popped up. So high school kids out there, keep in mind, Georgia, schools like that, they're paying attention to these track times. I mean, it matters to them. So if you're not playing baseball, if you're not doing something in the spring and you're a recruit, hey, run track. Helps you out for sure. But that is a yeah, well, it could hurt you. It seems like a lot of guys are getting hurt, track guys. There's a lot of talk about that on the vault, but it could hurt you in terms of having a bad time and things like that too. But I think that Georgia is very well positioned with Anthony Evans. Been saying it for weeks. Put my future cast back in, I think, on August 9th. So it's just felt for a while. And not only talking to him, it seems like he's bought into what Georgia's doing. Now he says very complimentary things of Oklahoma as well. But when you say those things where you're bought into what Georgia's pitching in terms of, he's spouting off basically Kirbyism, saying, well, Georgia, if you look at the metrics, they're really as explosive as any team in the country. When a wide receiver says that goes ding, ding, ding. He's buying into what they're selling at Georgia there. And then also the Cale Gundy stuff, things like that at Oklahoma. So I think they're in good shape for Anthony Evans at this point. Got the decision coming up on the 26th. So we shall see from there. Guys, before we get into the questions, I did want to talk about one more prospect, and he was on the actual cover right here. I'm going to throw the cover back up over there on the right-hand side. That is one Roderick Robinson II. He's a running back out of San Diego, California. This is a young man that Del McGee's been in contact with for a while. He's went out there and visited his school a couple of times during evaluation periods. And I spoke to Roderick's father, and he said Del McGee basically has just been upfront with him saying, your son is an SEC back. He's currently committed to UCLA, but he's that big body type guy, and they would love to have him on. He went for 8 carries, 186 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So scoring a touchdown on half of your carries to open up the season, pretty efficient night. But guys, this is a big back that is way more athletic than you would expect when you read off 6'1", 230.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like as much as appealing as it is to be committed to UCLA with them going to the Big Ten, I'm sure big Big Ten country out in San Diego. That's the guy that Georgia's really turned up the heat on since they missed on Haynes and Young, and like you said, Blaine, they had been in contact with Robinson before both those guys committed to Alabama. But I think with a lot of these guys, the next step is getting them on campus this fall for a visit, possibly an official, and then you see where it falls. But anytime Del McGee zeroes in on a guy, at the very least, Georgia's going to be one of the top contenders, I feel like. So there's a lot of different ways this running back situation could go. They could get Robinson. Tavani Mizell is still considering reclassifying. There's Jamarian Wilcox out there that Georgia hadn't offered yet. Jeremiah Love is out there still as well. So there's still a lot of I don't know if that uncertainty is the right word, but a lot of ways this running back situation could still shake out.
Absolutely. Trent, I mean, it seems like Branson Robinson, Kendall Milton, there seems to be a trend here that Del McGee, he doesn't mind bringing in bigger backs. He likes these bigger body guys that obviously you have to be, physically able to handle the toll of the SEC, but he likes guys who can catch it out of the backfield too, and Robinson's shown that he can do that.
Yeah, I was able to see Robinson at the Under Armour the game last year, and just seeing him catch the ball out of the backfield, he was impressive. And I know that's a big emphasis on what they're trying to recruit is I guess bigger type backs, but can also use that them hands out of the backfield. I guess when you go more towards a spread out offense, you tend to think that, oh, well, they're going to go to more scat back, but it's, in the SEC, you got to have that running back that can pick up that blocker if you need to pick it up. I mean, you saw James Cook pick up that blocker with A.D. Mitchell last year.
Huge.
And that's a lot of people say, well, Stetson made a great throw or AD made a great, but the play of that, the best thing of that play was James Cook picking up that block. So, you got to have those backs that can pick it up but again, they also like those guys that can catch the ball in the backfield and make plays in open space. So, I think they like a combination of both, and I think they've hit on those. But the depth's getting a little thin with Andrew Paul going down, and Kendall Milton having that injury history. So I know Georgia's going to try to land a couple top tier guys in this class, and I know they missed on a couple. So.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get into more running back stuff here in just a minute. Before we're about to turn over to our questions from the vault here, but before we do, wanted to make sure to thank everyone for tuning in. Also, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us. There's hundreds and hundreds, of you guys that watch each week that aren't subscribed. We got many that watch that are subscribed, but there's some that aren't. So hit that subscribe button, and we really appreciate that. Hit a like for us while you're in there as well. That little thumbs up. Both of those are free. It really helps us out a lot. We got a bunch of coverage coming up this year. Coach Donnan, of course, breaking everything down. The watch-alongs on Saturdays during the games. A call-in show after the games. Of course, we'll keep doing our stuff on Mondays, and then Dane and so Paul will have the call-in show, and then Dane and Roddy, Coach Donnan in the middle of the week. So we appreciate all you guys tuning in, and now let's go ahead and get to our vault questions here. Jed, we're going to start off with the running backs here.
Yeah, GDog09. Hate to say it, but does the Andrew Paul injury move the needle for Haynes or Young? Got to think they're selling more PT for those guys now.
I mean, Andrew Paul, a true freshman, comes in, and unfortunately, as Roddy and Dash were able to break the news, unfortunately, able to break the news a few nights ago, goes down with the ACL, but Trent, I'm not so sure that a freshman who will have plenty of time to come back off of that before next year. I don't know how much that impacts the class of 2023 recruitment. I mean, they may say, hey, this guy's may take a little bit longer, but I don't know that that's a huge selling point for guys right now.
You know who you're losing. I mean, you're losing Kenny McIntosh, and who's draft eligible. So there's going to be carries available no matter the freshman on campus. Dejon could leave if he had a good year. I mean, you have all these guys that could go. But again, I think that's not really a selling point because the chances of him being 100% healthy at this time next year are not great. And yes, that opens up maybe a few more carries, but I think that there's going to be carries available next fall anyways. So I think selling the possibility of playing time or the good chance of playing time is there no matter if Andrew Paul is healthy or not come next fall.
Absolutely. I think that, Georgia, and this leads right into this Pine Tree 1 says 2 running backs this class. To your point, Trent, you know what you got to replace. Georgia's definitely going to take 2, whether that's high school or transfer portal. There's all this reclassification talk. So running back is still very fluid right now, but they do have Tavani Mizell, who committed in the class of 2024. They're looking at Jarrett Gibson in the class of 2024 as well. And those are the 2 main targets there. And then, of course, we've talked about Roderick Robinson. So we'll see how things play out, but definitely Pine Tree thinking 2. All right, Jeb, we got Scuffletown here.
Loyal and true Scuffletown. Name the ones we might finish with and name the leaders we are in on for next year.
All right, guys that you feel confident saying Georgia might finish with. I think they're sitting at 18 commits right now. So you'd have Anthony Evans, presumably, feel pretty good about him. Tyler Williams, another guy that Georgia seems to be in the lead for at the wide receiver position. Who do you guys, outside of wide receiver, I know Georgia's got some work to do on the edge. They've got some work to do at offensive line, maybe another defensive lineman, some secondary work. Who are some guys that, and we can just kind of banter it about, who are some guys you feel confident in that Georgia could finish with this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think Georgia likes to place it for Jordan Hall out of Jacksonville, defensive tackle. Put him up front, and then I don't know. And Trent, what do you think? I think Georgia sits in a really good position with Sam and Pimba. They've been there since, I mean, it was really February or March when Georgia really started emerging, coinciding with the hire of Chidera Uzo-Diribe. He's still got an official to take to Athens this fall, so I think it could be a situation where that official visit to Athens really kind of puts Georgia over the top, and he ends up as part of the class as that huge 5-star centerpiece on the edge and in the defensive class. What do you think?
Yeah. I think he's definitely the top target there, and the guy that they feel like they have their best chances among those top guys. He's definitely kind of the sole focus in trying to finish off that talented linebacker class. I would also go with Chris Pill as another guy that we talked about earlier. Another athlete put out there in the secondary, an already talented secondary class. I think they're going to continue to push for Monroe Freeling at offensive line, and let's see what I guess defensive line would be another spot. You said Jordan Hall. I think they'll take another one. I don't.
Yeah, David Hobbs
there.
is a guy that they're pushing for out of North Carolina. I'm not. I would put Jordan Hall more in the lean Georgia club than I would David Hobbs. They're gaining ground on David Hobbs. He's a guy who's going to visit Georgia a couple times. So in that defensive line, I think on the edge, like you've alluded to, Jed, that they like Mpimba a good bit. Damon Wilson, two guys. Those are the two main guys they're pushing for there. And I think Chris Peel is a guy that you could very realistically, I've got a future cast in for him to Georgia. In fact, I feel like Fran Brown, with his connection to him back from his time at Rutgers, has a strong connection there with Chris Peel, and Georgia has stayed steady in the recruitment of him. They got to fight off NC State and Michigan are kind of the other two there that are in that one as well. So we'll see what happens there. Michigan kind of interesting there because Jaden Davis is also being recruited hard by Michigan, who is Chris Peel's teammate. And everybody is going to be clamoring to know that class of 2024 situation as well. Nobody else, Scuffletown, though, is kind of imminent right now in the class of 2024. A lot of those guys are kind of waiting their turn, things of that nature. But, quarterback would ideally be if you were Georgia in that class, be the next domino. But I think Jaden Davis is going to take his time, and it seems like Julian Sayin is starting to push things out a little bit further than we anticipated. Jed, there was rumors that he could come out and make a pick one way or another in August, and doesn't look like that's going to happen now. Probably going to take some visits. So those are some guys that you could probably see Georgia finish out with. But Speedy Dog has a question here, and I'll pose this one to you guys. Who are the real possibilities at running back and wide receiver in the 2023 class? So let's start there. We've talked about running back. We've talked about Roderick Robinson. Who else do you guys feel are real possibilities for Georgia at running back in the class of 2023?
I mean, I think Jamarian Wilcox is a real possibility. It's just obviously they haven't offered yet. But I mean, he had, I forget what his stat, he had a huge first game of his senior year this past weekend, as well as South Paulding beat Harrison. So that's a guy you look at. He visited Athens multiple times this spring, if I'm not mistaken. Georgia's been recruiting him, and then you look at Jeremiah Love out of St. Louis, and he's a guy that Georgia's been in contact with, and you're kind of seeing how things go. That's another guy that they might need to get on campus and have things develop from there. But you look at those three guys are kind of circled right now. And then outside of that, you look at maybe a flip candidate from somewhere, or maybe a guy kind of like Andrew Paul. At this time last year, no one had any idea who Andrew Paul was, and then he blows up in the playoffs. And Georgia swoops in and grabs him on signing day. So I think that might be something people need to keep a lookout for, is guys that just have a huge senior year and Georgia goes after him either in December for the early signing period or going into January and February for the regular signing period.
And we've talked for a long time about Jamarian Wilcox, Jed, and I'm going to go see him Friday night. So we'll see all the hype is all about. I didn't check into their box score, but somebody on the vault posted that he went over 200 yards this past Friday. So it seems like he's already starting off that senior year with a bang. Wide receiver in the class of 2023. We've already talked about, okay, you got Yazid Haynes, you got Raymond Cottrell there that you're going after. Anthony Evans, we've covered that. Seems like, you would put that one, maybe let's go ahead and err on the positive side for Georgia and say Anthony Evans is part of the class. Tyler Williams feels like another guy. Trent, is there anybody else realistically that you'd see being in the class at wide receiver for Georgia?
Realistically, they've been in the mix for Jalen Hill for a while. They've been in the mix for Hakeem Williams for a while. If you're looking, does Georgia lead at this point for either one of them? I'm not sure. I don't think so. But again, they've yet to play football yet. They've yet to play football on Saturdays, and I think with that coming up in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see some stuff change over the next 10 to 12 weeks with recruiting and favorites to land this kid or that kid, maybe some decommitments, and a lot's going to change from here to now. So I don't know that another wide receiver could pop up. I think there's I know Jalen Hill loved his visit, but I know the Arch Manning situation. I know that Alabama's in the mix. There's several other teams in the mix for Hakeem Williams, Texas A&M, and among others. I think there's a chance they land them, a realistic chance they land them, because who's recruiting for Georgia. You got McClendon, you got Kirby, you got that Clint, but I think you're going to see a lot change over the next 10 or 12 weeks, and that board will come. You'll start to see some movement there.
Absolutely. So those are the guys that we kind of see so far right now, running back, wide receiver, realistically. And the second part of that question was also, is the NIL the real reason we seem to have so many recruits fading away from UGA to other schools? Absolutely. NIL has a huge deal to do with this. And straight up, Georgia has a different philosophy and how they're going to go about this. Okay. It's all collective based. It's all that kind of stuff, because coaches, as Lane Kiffin has said, coaches should be able to be the ones that say, hey, here's how much you're going to get paid. But technically by the rule, they cannot. So, whether all that's happening here, there, wherever, who knows? But I will say this, there's numbers out there that are being thrown around, monthly numbers, that Georgia's collective, Georgia's booster, things like that, they're not going to go around right now. A lot of that has to do with team chemistry type stuff from, guys who've been there for 2, 3, 4 years that don't have any deals, Trent. So how can you pay an incoming guy who hasn't played a down of football a certain amount of money? So there's a roster chemistry balance type deal here that's going on. But, plain and simple, I think NIL does have a big reason why Georgia's lost out on a lot of their guys that they've wanted this cycle.
It does, and I think it's going to the NIL is going to be a big reason for an influx in the transfer portal as well, because, number one, are you going to be forced to play these guys because they're making a certain amount of money? I've talked to several people over the past week that think, that Kirby in particular is going about it the right way, because you got this collective, and you got this thing. Yes, you can pay these guys, you can get them, and nobody's against paying these college kids, but buying them is a different thing. And when you're buying them and you got a kid making this amount of money, just like you do in the major leagues, the NFL, you feel like you're forced to play these guys. They're making the big money for your team. You feel like you're forced to play them, and then what happens? I saw coaches when they don't play and they're collecting all this money, then you're going to start seeing the portal, or if they do play and they're collecting this money and they ain't very good, you're going to start seeing other guys jump ship.
I saw a video of Nick Saban speaking at the National Coaches Conference, Coaches Association deal a couple of years ago, or several years ago. Actually, he was still the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. This is before Alabama. And I saw it the other day on social media, and he said that the owner of the Miami Dolphins called him up and said, all right, I'm about to pay this player a $10 million signing bonus. Do you think he's worth it? Nick Saban said, I don't think any of them are worth it. He said, but if you pay that man that money, he will be our starting right corner. So, like, that's how it goes in the NFL. You're exactly right. I mean, if there's an investment made and the boosters are the one controlling that investment at a certain point, Jed, you know, where does the line get blurred of a booster reaching out to coaches and say, okay, we've paid to see this guy play, you better play him. Oh, wait, that happened this past week with Quinn Ewers in Texas. Like, I mean, that situation was crazy. So
yeah.
I think Georgia's playing more of a long game with how they're doing the NIL, and they may miss out on some guys who are more NIL centric to start off with, Jed.
Yeah, well, it goes back to what we were saying about Kirby and the receivers. What he and the staff prioritizes so much in these recruitments is guys who are bought in, who are fit the Georgia way, whatever. And every program has their own, the Texas A&M way, the Clemson way, whatever. But Kirby just seems to be very unflinching in terms of this NIL thing, and he's not going to compromise guys that he doesn't think are fits necessarily, or he's not going to use NIL to, just throw it at these kids. So, like you said, it's going to make you lose on some kids, but 3 years down the line, we might look and say, okay, look at all these guys that Texas A&M had leave via the portal, or Miami, or Nico Iamaleava going to Tennessee and getting that NIL money didn't work out too great, stuff like that. So nobody really knows how it's going to work out at this point. Texas A&M could win the next 3 national championships for all we know, and then all the money's worth it. So, but yeah, like you said, right now Georgia's collective and their philosophy is in it for the long game, and we're going to see how it works out.
Absolutely. It's going to be fascinating to see if we could look forward 3-4 years from now and just see, first of all, where all the coaches are at, because there's going to be chaos, and then the coaches are going to be moving around with all this. And then think about that. Now when coaches move around, okay, they're going to know the NIL secrets, the NIL going ons of where they were at before and things like that. Absolutely, so many layers to this. It's gonna be fascinating. But
is there secrets though? I think can you beat the sum? I mean, there is probably some secrets along the way of how it's handled. But again, who's willing to do this amount or that amount, or what it is? And there's several teams, obviously, that are willing to do it.
No doubt. It's the Wild West right now, and to a certain extent. All right, Jed, we got one from Johnny Football.
Johnny Football, I like it. Who is the recruit no one is talking about that will be in the class come December or February?
Arch?
God, let's end the show. End the show right now. That was. You can send your tweets to @Trent Smallwood. Oh my goodness, like that. Let's not even open that up again. But I think some people with a little bit over months from his commitment. I think Jalen Hill's a guy that people need to look a little bit harder at with Georgia. I think Georgia's in a little bit better shape. I'm not saying he's going to end up at Georgia, but hey, they've got a really good shot with him, I believe. I think some people think it's a foregone conclusion, but they're going to keep going after him. I mean, is the quarterback walk-on, the preferred walk-on? I believe he's from Florida, isn't it? Will Pritchard or Prikert? Yeah, that contacted Georgia himself. He's a 3-star that has offers from. Heck, he has an offer from Florida, and he contacted Georgia and said, "Hey, I'd like to walk on, be a member of a team as a preferred walk-on." So who knows? He may end up signing on the dotted line. Georgia has some guys that they're eyeing. We've listed them on the vault. So if you're not a member on the vault, you need to get over there and look. But there's a whole number of quarterbacks that Georgia may go after and try to flip late in this one as well. Because even though Georgia's very confident in their room, guys, at quarterback, you never know if 2 of those guys are going to get to this spring and say, all right, I'm out of here. We'll see you later. So you always have to have that depth that you build at the quarterback position. And who knows, maybe Georgia tries to flip one of those guys late.
I also think you might see some if you see any movement in that quarterback depth chart over the fall, it might cause some some more December-ish or January transfers, because as it sits right now, it's in the order of basically from senior all the way down to freshman is the depth chart order. But if you see some movement in that depth chart, or somebody starts getting some second team reps over somebody else, you might see some movement there, and you might see Georgia, try to push more for a quarterback late because of that movement.
People. There's been some rumblings out there that Brock Vandegrift had a tremendous scrimmage. That second scrimmage did really well. Had some nice throws. So, like you said, if he were to jump a Carson Beck, who knows what happens there? Things like that. So, gonna be very interesting for sure. Jed, anybody else that comes to mind that maybe people aren't talking about that could end up as part of the class? And if you say Jamar and Wilcox, everybody's going to hate us because we've mentioned that too much. So anybody besides Jamar and Wilcox?
Yeah, we talk about Jamar and Wilcox so much he's ineligible for this category. I wonder how things shake up on the offensive line, because there's a lot of uncertainty there. You wonder, one, do they somehow make a late charge for either the 5 stars, Okunlola or Shanahan? They obviously were in a great position for Shanahan at one point. And now he's swinging Texas A&M. Does Georgia get back in it with him? Who knows? And then you look at a guy like maybe a Chase Basantis, who is interested in Georgia, committed to Texas A&M. Does Georgia pursue him hard with the Fran Brown connection and go after a possible flip there? Maybe. That's a position I'm so fascinated to see how it shakes out, because KJ Smith and Joshua Miller are locked in. Bo Hewley, there was all the flip rumblings a couple weeks ago. That's died down, but still hasn't obviously signed yet. So Monroe Freeling's still out there. So offensive line is one I'm kind of curious to see how it shakes out.
Jeff Fulford on YouTube says, guys, you had mentioned that before that not all recruits are driven by NIL. Before we paint the picture, Georgia won't have a top 5 class. Appears that NIL hunters may indeed be chemistry killers. Oh, I agree. No one on this group is saying that Georgia's not going to have a top 5 class. They're absolutely going to have a top 5 class, I would predict, but it's just going to be more of a, sum of the parts than it is a totally top heavy. But I do think I think they're in good shape with Samuel Mpemba. Like we said, that's a guy who's at one point was ranked as high as number 3 prospect in the country. So there's some guys and they could flip some guys late. But I do think that at least early on, who knows, maybe at the end, the NIL swings a little bit different towards the end, but early on, that NIL, if that's the main number one thing, and that's what somebody cares about the most, that may not be where they end up in terms of Athens. I don't know.
And people got to understand that it's not always the kid that's going to be the issue. The kid's not always driving the NIL process. I mean, he's got people around him that are sometimes driving that process. That it doesn't mean that kid's going to be a cancer to that team that he goes to. But you got to understand that we're dealing with 17, 18-year-old kids, and not all the time is that kid the one that's driving this NIL process. So
there's handlers out there, there's trainers, there's mama and daddies, and
so just because a kid might be receiving a certain amount of money doesn't mean that kid's going to be a chemistry killer, because it might be somebody else driving that boat.
Rock C82 Jed has something for us here.
Yeah, he says, what is negative recruiting? Explain how anyone can negatively recruit the reigning national champions.
You can negatively recruit in several ways. You can negatively recruit that Georgia's they did have explosive plays, but they didn't really have explosive numbers at the receiver position. Everybody's looking at numbers. Not everybody, but a lot of people are looking at stats. You turn on the TV and you watch game day after the thing, and all they're looking at, so and so had this amount of yards, and then. But these recruits they're also looking at stats, and these other teams are preaching, you can be 1,000-yard receiver here, and Georgia hadn't had a 1,000-yard receiver in 10 years or however many years. So I mean, that's one specific thing. I don't know if you can negatively recruit Georgia's defense as much because of what they've done, but I know you can. You can definitely negatively recruit the offense, and we've heard of that happening.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, and go ahead, Jim.
It's just a thing. It's not. The question is, how can you negatively recruit the defending national champions? I don't think people are negatively recruiting necessarily the program. It's like you said, Trent. It's individual positions. It's okay at receiver, they don't get stats. If you're talking about running backs, Georgia rotates their running backs so much. Come here and be the guy and get 25, 30 carries a game. Tight end, there's so much depth there. Why would you want to go there? Same thing. You come here and be the guy. Defense, I mean, even defensive line. Hey, do you want to go to Georgia and rotate so much, or do you want to be here and play so much? So it just depends on the kids and the school and what the other school has to offer and things. But as far as the program as a whole, right, there are a few programs in as good a shape as Georgia is. But when you narrow it down and look at each individual position group, then you start kind of finding those things that other schools can nitpick and negative recruit on.
Yeah, and people, kind of like they've done with Alabama for, the last decade, they're trying to make Georgia a victim of their own success. They're trying to say, yeah, you can go over there, be part of a juggernaut, but how long is it going to take you to get on the field? Or how's your brand going to suffer by, not getting these NIL opportunities because you're not putting up these numbers like Trent alluded to, things of that nature. So now there's different terms being thrown around when it comes to branding and it comes to gathering a following, all this kind of stuff. However, it is interesting to me when we listen to these press conferences, right? And Kirby Smart the other day was literally talking about freshmen and how many freshman receivers have really stepped up and helped Georgia over the last few years, calling out A.D. Mitchell, calling out Ladd McConkey, talking about Dylan Bell and how he's doing this year, saying they're really looking forward to getting to Nylon Morissette back from injury, things like that. That's strategic, guys. There's not a word that comes out of Kirby's mouth that doesn't have some kind of strategy behind it when it comes to like that. And the strategy may be just to excoriate a reporter that asked him a dumb question. That may be the strategy there on it. But hey, they always have something behind them. The Boy Racer says, who do we have a better chance at getting, Impemba or Damon Wilson? We can go rapid fire on this one. I'm going to say Impemba. Yeah,
me too. Impemba.
Yeah, I'll say the same.
Absolutely. And then let's go to F. McCrary Jr. If Tavani Mizell reclassified, where would he rank in the 2023 overall class rankings among running backs? So you've got Reuben Owens, you've got Justice Haynes up there, you got Richard Young. I think after that, there's a good amount of separation, and they're kind of guys that are all over the place. But when you look at the numbers that Tavani Mizell put up at the Rivals camp, guys, a 4.30 that he recorded on a laser at the Rivals camp, that's like shockingly fast going to be a junior in high school. So, I think he'd rank pretty high if you're going by the metrics, because that's typically how it goes. Playing the game's part of it. But Trent, you've been around this ranking deal longer than most of us. So what's your opinion on Tavani Mizell if he were to reclassify?
Yeah, I mean, he's ranked number 5 in the 2024-14. That's a long time ago. 2024 class, and I think you would see him probably around that same area at the 5, because I think he will likely be bumped up if he stays in the 2024 class because of his numbers. But with the 2023 class, I think you're really top heavy at the position, like you mentioned. And then it falls off a little bit. So I think he would be somewhere around 5, 6, maybe. It could creep up to that, 4 area, but I think he'd be somewhere in the 4 to 6 as far as running backs are considered. I guess that would be top 100. I haven't looked at the rankings, but I would say 4 to 6 is somewhere in the top 100, 70 to 80 range.
Yeah, solid right there. My man Dusty Black here, our coach for Dusty at Flyer Branch. So Dusty, I hope you're doing well, man. He says, hope everything's been going for me and my family. It has. I appreciate it, Dusty. Good to have you on here, man. And where do you see Sammy Brown ending up? So, Jed, if you had to call it today, where would the Jefferson Dragon end up being? Had 205 rushing yards to start off the season and a barn burner loss to Alpharetta. Is Georgia right in the thick of it there for Sammy Brown?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you look at Georgia, Clemson, and Tennessee as like the three front runners. I mean, I know he loves Georgia. He loves Glenn Schumann. He loves what Georgia does with their linebackers. I mean, honestly, I think those three. I mean, it's such a cop-out answer, but I think all three of those are right there together. I mean, I know he's planning to take official visits next summer. I figured those three are probably guaranteed to get those official visits, and I think this is a recruitment that's not going to be decided at all until next summer. Georgia certainly is one of the favorites. Like I said, I'd put him in the top three. Ultimately, I think he probably ends up at one of those three schools, but there's still so far to go for Sammy Brown. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I think too. Another there's three other SEC teams that I think will get a strong look by Sammy Brown. I think South Carolina could get a good look from him. They were one of the first teams to offer him. Ole Miss, he's been out there a couple of times. Even Auburn. So it's going to be interesting to see all those teams. But Trent John Hicks on YouTube has a question for you, man. He said, when you spoke to Justice the other night, did you feel that Georgia were still in it? What's it going to take to flip him?
I mean, I don't know.
Can't say what we said in our group chat.
Of course, he still has that relationship with Dell, and he talked about offer from Ohio State, and he talked about Alabama, and he pretty much said that he was locked in Alabama right now, but he was still praying about it and going over his options. And right now he's not planning any other visits, but he didn't rule out the possibility of it happening. I think the relationship with Georgia and Dell McGee particularly is big here. I wouldn't predict a flip. I think he's a player that didn't just make a decision. He really thought this decision through, and but I'm not going to rule it out. But I would not predict that right now.
We're in a time crunch here, boys. My computer just said running low on juice. I got this thing plugged up, but guys, now that's gonna do it for us here tonight. Anyways, we've hit all the bases, so we appreciate everybody tuning in. Started a little bit earlier tonight, so if you didn't catch it, go back and see everything from the beginning. Covered a lot of ground. Anthony Evans' decision, some big high school performances. Subscribe. Turn on those notifications, and we really appreciate you guys, man. I'm in all kinds of stuff here because I got a text box that won't let me click on the thing to get out of here. So we're trying to close this thing up before the computer dies. But guys, appreciate you tuning in. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We'll catch you next time on UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts.